Priming Your Canvas, Optimizing the Ashford University Classroom Experience, presented by Cole McFarren. We are excited that you have joined us here today to hear Cole's presentation. The chat window will be open at the end of the presentation, so feel free to ask questions then. Please welcome Cole.
Thank you, Ryan, for the introduction today. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about the student Canvas classroom experience. So like Ryan said, my name is Cole McFarren. I am a manager for Ashford University's Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. And to be 100% honest, this is not 100% in my wheelhouse. So usually with my role specifically, we work very closely with the faculty on their side of the classroom experience. So I had the opportunity and privilege to lead a lot of Ashford University's faculty through some of the training and resources that we created when we switched over to Canvas over 6 months ago. So at the same time, in addition to my daytime role with Ashford, I do teach EXP 105 and Gen 102 for Ashford University as well. So I do have kind of a unique faculty and administrative perspective, but then at the same time, I do still work with students closely, but not usually on like student tech issues or like student issues working in the classroom other than in my own class. So this is just a little bit of a different, spin for, some of the stuff that I'm used to. But since I am very familiar with the faculty role within the classroom, I can speak to a lot of the nuances that our students go through as well. So I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into some of these tips and tricks for you. One thing I wanted to kind of, clarify is when I'm talking today, I recognize that we have two, specific subsets of students that we're working with. One subset has been with us for a while. Maybe you're partway through your program and you actually had attended programs in our previous platform, eCollege. I also recognize that we have some students that are newer who have just only known us through our Canvas courses. So I might be kind of going back and forth talking to kind of both audiences today, but everything that I'm talking about is definitely applicable to all of you. So any of you that are familiar with artistry, or even if you've ever painted your living room wall, that a primer is essentially a way that we can basically make sure that our area is prepared and that we're being most efficient and working smarter and not harder with what we have. If you try to paint a red wall blue without primer, you're going to end up with a purple wall. So we really just kind of want to make sure that we're using the tools that we have to the best of our ability and that you're getting everything that you can out of your classroom experience. One of the first things that we noticed, when we transferred over from eCollege to Canvas is that the overall navigability of the system is just a little bit different. Essentially, right when you get into your classroom, if you're anything like me, the first thing that you click on is that modules button, because that modules button on the left really takes you to everything that you would probably need to access in your course, with a couple of exceptions. And you'll recognize that format too, because it was very much like how we had things structured in eCollege, where things are very chronological and structured like that. In the second screenshot, you can actually see too, to where we've built and made some improvements on the classroom. Even since we've just transferred over, we actually made some shortcuts right there on the home screen available in almost all of our classes to make that navigability even easier and a little bit closer to what we were used to with some of our prior experience. But long story short, if you're kind of having trouble finding what you're trying to get to, the modules button on the left side is the best way to probably access most of the content that's within your course. Some of the feedback that we got specifically after transferring, and we got a lot of it from the faculty side, but we got some from the student side as well, is just the fact that the discussion forums are definitely a different navigation system than what we were used to with eCollege. In some ways, we were able to kind of see, a bird's eye view perspective. You were able to see all of the posts, within one screen. Now we have to kind of work to really make sure that we see everything that we can going on in the classroom. So one of the first things we did when we got over to the classroom, it was such a difference from the old system that we had actually worked to make some internal improvements with some of the layout of the discussion forum. So you can see here, for example, when we first switched over, there were no indentations between replies and initial posts. It was kind of hard to tell those. There weren't as many lines between some of the things. It wasn't super clear that, to collapse or expand a post, you had to click on that triangle at the top. So there were some little cosmetic tweaks that we were able to make that have really made a big difference with some of the user, issues that we had seen previously. It really does kind of help to delineate and differentiate some of those posts. So those are some of the things that we've done based on your feedback just already. And we still have more, enhancements and things that we're continuing to work on in regards to the discussion forums. This was one of the, probably in my mind, like the quickest and easiest and one of the most impactful things that you can do for your discussion forum navigation, or at least in my opinion, when I'm working as an instructor in a class. So you can see the screen on the left. The discussion forums show, it doesn't seem like it's always the most efficient use of space in some ways. It's really kind of big and a little bit clunky. What I found that was if you zoom out, so all browsers essentially have a zoom function where you can, get really, really close in on the content, or you can kind of zoom out depending on what you're looking at. What I would suggest is actually zooming out even 10 to 20%. If you like to use shortcuts, you can actually push the control button on your keyboard and then use your mouse wheel back and forth to go in and out. Or you can use the plus or minus on the keyboard to do that with the control button as well. But either way that you like to use your zoom function within your browser, I would suggest just kind of popping in and out and seeing, what works best for you and what works best for your eyes. Excuse me, there are some variations, obviously, when it comes to eyesight or your screen resolution, how big your monitor is, things like that. So it might not work perfect for you, but I would encourage you to get in there and zoom in and out a couple of times just to see where exactly, your favorite fit is. Another tiny little tweak that we can do to add some more, kind of usable space to our classroom area is if you're in the very, very top of your classroom, up in the upper left corner, you can actually minimize that navigation bar that's on the left. So you can see between the before and after pictures, there's actually some dead space on that left one, on the left side of the classroom there. And then in the one to the right, you can actually see the discussion forum bumps all the way up to that on the left there. So just another way to kind of get a little bit more use out of the space that we have in the classroom. Additionally, when you get into the any discussion forum, usually what I do, and obviously it's a little different from the instructor side, but what I like to do is when you get into any discussion forum, Canvas defaults to essentially have all of them expanded. So you have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll for days to get, maybe you weren't the first one to respond this week to get down to your response. But there's really some cool ways that we can kind of make that a more efficient process. If you look at that screenshot there, you can see up at the top of every discussion forum are these navigation tips to where you can basically like collapse all of the posts into kind of a truncated view where you can see just the student's name and then a quick little preview of what they wrote. And then you can kind of file it down by that. And then the button right next to the 2 on that screenshot expands it back to the default to where it was. Another thing that's on that navigation bar in the discussion forum that is really a handy tool is the search bar. So if you see where that 1 is on that screenshot there, you can go ahead and type your name up there. Maybe you want to just double check and make sure that your post posted, or you want to, go in and see how many posts you have for the week. If you use that search button up on top, that's a great way to kind of pull up some of your views, and you can see it actually pulls up just my views. So one thing that you might want to check, for example, so what it does is it shows you just your posts, but not in the context of the conversation at all. So if you actually use the search function that's within your browser, another one of those browser tools that really kind of helps us out, I like to use the shortcut Control F. You can actually type your name in, and then what that'll do is it'll bring all of your posts up and you'll be able to search from one to the next, but it'll leave it in the context of that conversation. So it's easier to see if another classmate responded to you, or maybe your instructor followed up and asked a couple questions or something like that. Using that Control F and that search function within the browser as opposed to the one in the navigation bar is actually a little bit better of a tool for those specific purposes if you want to see your post in the context of everything. Notifications. Notifications are one of the tools that we knew, coming into Canvas. We had a kind of a basic version of it with eCollege, but it's really, this version is just much more robust. It's a native function within Canvas. And we've gotten some really, really good feedback from both faculty and students that it's just so handy to be able to stay in touch with your classroom. I'm going to go ahead and give you some of the tips that go along with this notifications feature in our Canvas classrooms. So if you go under your account on the left side tab there, you can see the account is one of the top buttons that you have there where your picture is. If you click on that, you can get into the notification setting page of the classroom. And this essentially sets up just a whole bunch of different options to where you can set up to where you get an email sent to you anytime a certain thing happens in the classroom. I've gone ahead and highlighted some of the ones that might be really, really important and useful to you as students. The first one would be grading. There's actually a setting to where you can click a box and you will receive an email notification every time you get a grade in the gradebook for your instructor. That's a pretty cool and useful tip to get your feedback, as fast as you can. So that's a really, really cool one I would suggest turning on if you haven't already. Conversations is another good category that you might want to subscribe to in the notifications section. The conversation section actually ties into the inbox within the classroom, this was a little bit confusing when we first moved over. So it's essentially an internal messaging, almost like an email system within the classroom. But your inbox and your email don't really sync up until you turn the notifications on. And in that situation, you're actually able to receive any inbox message into your email. And then you can actually even respond to that message within your email and it shoots back to the classroom, which is a really, really cool feature. And one of the nice ways to stay in touch with, say you sent your instructor a message and you're waiting for them to get back to you and you want the answer right away. And instead of logging into your classroom 20 times throughout the day, you can get that notification when they responded, which is a pretty cool feature. Number 3, due dates. They actually tie into, and this is another cool aspect of the Canvas classroom that we'll get into in a little bit, is the calendar function. So the due dates, you can essentially get a reminder every time a due date comes up for you in class. So say you want to be reminded when your discussions and quizzes and assignments are due. You can turn that notification on and you'll get a reminder email every time you have an assignment due, which is pretty cool. So the last thing that I kind of wanted to mention about notifications in this section is the frequency of notifications. So in that screenshot there, you can see, some boxes. There's some green check marks. There's some clocks. There's some calendars and some X's. And there's a key up at the top there that kind of shows you. So for example, you can set up to where you get just a summary of all of the notifications that you would want at the end of the day. Or you can sign up to where you get them right away. Or you can sign up to where you don't get them at all. That bar along the right side of the classroom that you see there is where you'll turn on how frequently and how exactly you want to receive those notifications. So if you haven't gotten in and messed with that part of the classroom, I would absolutely suggest it. And it takes a little bit of tweaking. Sometimes you might turn too many on and you'll get, flooded, and then stuff gets lost in the flood. And then you have to kind of scale it back. So it's all about just going in and really seeing what works best for the way you work. The calendar. Like I had mentioned, this ties into the notifications pretty well and is a new feature actually from us coming over to eCollege. So the calendar, if you look at that one there, it's essentially on that left tab. Anytime you're in your classroom, that calendar tab is available there on the left side. And one of the really, really cool features in my mind is if you're a really, really savvy person who, maybe you use your Outlook or your Google Calendar to keep track of everything in your lives. You got your kids' appointments on there, you've got your haircut in there, you've got all of your work stuff in there, and you really need it to just all be together. You can get your classroom stuff in there actually with the calendar feed option. There's a little number 2 there on that screenshot where you can see the calendar feed there, where you can actually sync up some of your devices and other calendars to link right up with your classroom and things that you have due. So another cool feature that, if you're that kind of person who really stays, organized in that way. Time zones. Time zones are a little bit of a confusing issue sometimes when it comes to Canvas things. So what you can do as a student is, so essentially everything is default and your accounts are defaulted to Mountain Standard Time right when we first get into Canvas. So essentially, you can go in, so if you go into your account and then settings and then edit settings, what you can actually do is, just double checking the chat just to make sure everything's going okay. Okay, good, looks nice. You can turn on that setting and you can change it to where it changes to your time zone. So for example, I'm in Central Time. So now when I change my time zone to Central Time. So when I go in and I post, it posts my time at the right time for me in Central Time. Now where it gets a little bit confusing can be within that calendar function specifically. So for example, essentially the way it works is all of our assignments have to be tied to not just a due date, but a time. So you would think it would make sense to say, okay, well, it's due at midnight on this day. Well, that doesn't always quite work as seamlessly as we would like it to. So for example, if it's due on, a Thursday night, like a discussion forum, for example, and then you change your time zone, it might actually show you to where it's due Friday at 1 a.m. So that's just one thing that you will want to stay aware of while you're working in Canvas with the time zones. Yeah, so it's kind of a handy feature, but it is just there's a bit of a caveat that you'll want to watch out for if you are switching that around and using the calendar function specifically. You'll want to just double check and always defer to the dates that are posted in the classroom and not necessarily the calendar, if that makes sense. The gradebook section of the classroom. This is another, when I kind of talked about the differences between students who had used eCollege and Canvas and then students that are just native to Canvas, students that are native to Canvas might not really notice that much of a difference when it comes to assignment feedback because they've never known anything different. Students that used eCollege before Canvas were used to being able to go into the gradebook and then you could actually see your rubric, the instructor's comment, and the link to your marked up document all right there within the gradebook. So when we switched over, we were still able to see the grade for the assignment in the grade book, but to get to that assignment feedback takes just a couple extra steps. And I actually cheated just a little bit. I went ahead and outsourced this section of the presentation. We actually released a video just maybe a week ago to students that really kind of breaks down the process to accessing that feedback. So I'm just gonna pull that up real quick and share that with you because they can do it. This video does a better job of telling you how to do this than I could in a couple minutes. So here we go.
Assignment feedback is a valuable tool provided to help you grow, develop skills, and improve your performance in the classroom. In order to access assignments submitted to Waypoint and view your feedback, first go to the assignment in question and scroll toward the bottom of the page. You will see an orange icon that reads, "Click the button below to access Waypoint." Click this and you'll be taken to Waypoint through a new window. From this page, you'll see all your submissions that were made through Waypoint for this class. You can find the assignment in question here, when it was submitted, and if it has been graded. To see your instructor's feedback, click the link that says View Feedback. After clicking View Feedback, you will be able to see the instructor's summarized feedback, the rubric used for grading, and the final grade for the assignment. For some written assignments, such as a final paper, you may have the option to View Markup. Make sure you click this link to see specific comments your instructor has left within your assignment. After reviewing the rubric and feedback thoroughly, contact your instructor if you have further questions.
See, that was way smoother than I could have done it. So, but yeah, that was just a super quick walkthrough, to kind of show just that there is a little bit of a difference with the way, that we were used to with eCollege. Like I said, a lot of Canvas natives probably wouldn't know the difference, but we really wanted to try to get that communication out there, especially for students that are early on in their program for the first couple times that they're accessing their feedback. So. A couple things about the gradebook that you might want to keep in mind is the fact that there's actually an option there where you can click a box and it says calculate based only on graded assignments, which is great. If you want to look at, for example, like, okay, what would my grade be like if I didn't submit my last paper or, something like that along those lines, those hypothetical situations. That's good for, but you want to double check and make sure that when that's checked and when that's not checked, because that can lead to some confusion about where you truly are in the classroom. So just something to keep in mind with that gradebook option. And then that button there where it says show all details, that's the quickest and easiest way in my mind when you go into the gradebook to make sure that you see, the comments that your instructor is leaving on your discussion feedback, and then also the rubric that they're using and filling out to grade those as well. So a couple things to keep in mind about the gradebook. Miscellaneous. Not everything fits neatly into one box or another, so we've got just a few more tips that I kind of wanted to share with you. You may notice that your dashboard, where you can kind of go from class to class, may be getting a little bit clogged now. Because you've had a few classes that have been in Canvas. So if you want to, you can actually remove a couple of those from your dashboard. And that's really handy if you're using the app as well, because the dashboard essentially is where you access those in the app. But if you click on where that one is, where it says courses on the left tab and then all courses, you can actually star or unstar any of the classes that are on your dashboard to either keep them or get rid of them. So that's pretty cool way to clean that up if you have a couple classes that are kind of stacked up there. Open link in new tab. Some of the feedback that we've gotten, is that the navigability of the classroom, in some ways is just not super friendly. So for example, like if you're in your inbox and you're trying to send your instructor a message and you're trying to look at something in the classroom, it kind of takes you back out of the classroom. So one thing that you might want to do if you're kind of clicking back and forth a lot and it's kind of a nuisance is you can right click on anything like the inbox, for example, and try to open the link in a new tab. Oftentimes we can have different areas of the classroom open in different tabs since we're logged in under our usernames. But it's just a little bit easier to click from tab to tab instead of going 5 clicks back and 5 clicks forth to the inbox or even the grade book or some of the different areas in the classroom. Something that I would suggest if you haven't done it already is to download the app. It's not, I definitely wouldn't suggest it as, your main way of accessing your course for sure. I mean, writing a discussion post in an app is not the most user-friendly way to do it. But, if you're trying to, like look at course content on your lunch break, or you have to post a question to your instructor or respond to something in your inbox, the app is an awesome supplemental tool to stay in touch with your classroom on the go for sure. I wanted to kind of leave off with some resources for you. So moving forward, some of the things that might be really, really helpful, in your classroom and getting extra assistance and resources and things like that would be, so number one, there's a lot of different ways that you can contact your instructor in Canvas, which is kind of awesome. But at the same way, there's a lot of ways that you can contact your instructor. So it's not overwhelming necessarily because there's so many ways. The inbox, like I had mentioned, is kind of an internal email / messaging system located on that left tab of the classroom. That's one of the main ways that I find that students communicate with me now that we've moved over to Canvas. And I really like it. It's user-friendly and pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You can also use the Ask Your Instructor forum if it's kind of a public question that you think like maybe other people would benefit from seeing the answer to. You can also reply to announcements actually for the most part, unless they're closed down by your instructor. But if you have a question about what they say about week 4, you can go in there and post it right there. So another thing you'll want to keep track of is that you can actually also reply in the grades section of the classroom as well. That's kind of a new one for all of us, to be honest. So it's just something that you'll want it. So say, for example, you leave your instructor a message in the grade book and they don't get back to you for a couple of days. It might be not a bad idea to just send them an inbox message just in case there's still, we're trying to get faculty all on board with checking that and making sure it's up to date, but it is still kind of new. So just something to keep in mind. And then another thing, about email within the system is email is not actually as user-friendly within Canvas as it necessarily was within eCollege. But there's a couple different ways you can get to your instructor's email if you would rather that be the medium of communication. You can usually click on somebody's name and it'll actually take you to their biography, in which they usually have it. And then also you can look in like some earlier announcements, usually in welcome announcements or something. Faculty will have mentioned it there. One more thing to keep in mind is, if you really run into any super specific hurdles while navigating the classroom, advisors are actually able to use this program called Zoom, to where they can actually do a screen share with you and kind of walk you through a general classroom to kind of show you, some of the different navigation things that you can do within that. It's still kind of a new system, so it's a little bit limited. Like I said, it's kind of a generic classroom. There won't actually be video with the advisor, but they will be able to share their screen and show you exactly what you need to see. So just kind of you should reach out to your advisor if you do have questions about that or about them walking you through some of the things in the class. In the Help tab on the left side of the course, you can actually see there's a few different resources that are available to students. So the Help Now videos are a great introduction to a lot of the classroom functionality. If you haven't gone in there and you're still new to the classroom, I would definitely suggest going in there and taking a look at some of those videos. And then Canvas Tech Support is actually also available via telephone and chat, depending on which way you want to contact them. So that's kind of another cool support tool that's built right into the classroom for you. So, and then thank you. I just wanted to mostly thank you all for, sitting through this with me today and, becoming super users in your classroom, so to speak. I do want to give a super special shout out to Stephanie Kilby, a student advising manager out here in Iowa, who, really kind of refreshed. I knew some of these things, on the student side, but I really, get so into the weeds sometimes on the instructor side that I needed a fresh perspective, and she helped me out a lot. So very big special thanks to Stephanie. And if you have very specific feedback that you want to leave about the classroom experience, or you have some ideas on how it can be improved, there's a specific inbox set up for that. So if you email lmsfeedback@bpiedu.com, that's actually, we have people that monitor that and actually look to use that feedback on ways that we can improve the student and the classroom experience. So thank you again for all of your attention today. I hope you found at least one or maybe even two things to kind of improve your user experience in the classroom, and have fun. So thanks again, everybody.